I've started calling you an anarchist.
Ooh.
Papers, that's the word now.
Anarchist.
Yeah.
Kidding, what papers did you
Oh,
submit?
2 or 3. That's because you don't offer any solution.
Kidding.
Chris.
Anarchist.
Yeah.
Sure. Give me a cigarette. Give the anarchist a cigarette.
You know, in our last episode, I talked about how the relationship between Lou and Boff in Chumbawamba and how weird it was that she left him for the drummer of the band. Then I learned about a story about a couple of other subjects that we covered that I think puts that into perspective a little bit. I think I sent you this article. Remember the one about Trish and Noah Cyrus and Trish's new husband?
I didn't actually open it, Nick. I apologize.
Okay, well...
Fill me in now.
So the deal was... So Trish just married an actor named Dominic Parcell. Okay. He's 53 years old, which is around Tish's age. They got married last year. And it just came out recently that before Trish and Dominic Parcell married each other, Dominic was seeing Noah Cyrus.
Oh God! That's disgusting. I mean, okay. How old is this guy?
He's in his 50s. She's like 23. So he's old enough to be her dad. I think she is actually as old as some of his other kids. And Tish basically stole him away from Noah.
Is this the first case of like age appropriate family stealing? Like, no, you're going to be with someone your own age, like me.
Yeah, I mean, like,
but still, to bang the guy that was previously grooming your daughter is...
How's my pussy compared with no?
Yeah, this is so bad. Like, the more you think about it, like, for 1 second, I was going to be like, all right, well, that's kind of hot. If he's young, it's like, that's kind of hot. You bang your girlfriend's mom. If she looks like Tish, you know. No. But no, it's not. No, it's all backwards. It's all messed up.
Dude, that fucking family, man. Like, people thought Miley was a train wreck. It's amazing she's as normal as she is.
Yeah.
Like, with all these kinds of people floating around in her life, like, she should be eating fucking slugs out in the woods.
Dude,
or some shit.
The whole Hollywood sphere, the more we learn, the more the internet pulls up the rug and you watch all the bugs scurry away, the more I hate it.
Oh, it's
even now, like, the stuff that's all coming out about P. Diddy, like, we all kind of knew he sucked. I think everyone knew he's not a great guy. But when you start hearing details, it turns it real.
Dark. Like, just who has time to commit crimes on that big of a scale? Like, it's just a lot of work.
Well, I always wonder, like, are deviants drawn to show business, or does showbiz just make it so easy to be a deviant that, like, people give into these what maybe would have been fleeting moments? Or, like, there has to be some theory on why this is so prevalent.
I think you have to be a megalomaniac to want to be an actor at all, or any kind of musician or entertainer. So just the natural, like, success algorithm for how it works is going to filter out, like, most sane, rational
anyone with a
people.
Full conscience.
Like, even, like, the great ones are delusional to some degree or another. And that, on top of that, you have opportunity, where in that business, access is everything. People dream of, like, having conversations, right, with guys like Tarantino or fucking whoever. Like, it's all about who you know, and people just leverage that to, like, just absolutely horrific ends.
Which is why it's perfect that this band railed against them.
Yes, like nothing could be different from the entire behind the music narrative than these motherfuckers that we've been talking about for 3 episodes now. All right, welcome to Polishing Turds with Nick and Cal. My name is Nick.
And I'm Cal.
And this is the show where we take a deep dive into the wonderful world of bad music. Welcome to part 2 of our series on the eccentric English anarchist Chumbawamba. All right, Cal, we're
cruising now.
We're cruising into this. We're really getting into the meat of this band's career. We're still a long way from tub thumping, but just remember, every little act of protest, every debate in Parliament, every rock thrown at a cop by a striking miner, every wad of phlegm that's spat onto some punk's eye in some stage in Leeds, like it's all leading to tub thumping. All of this chaos of modern capitalism and war and the threat of nuclear Armageddon, all of it was a necessary precondition for that wonderful getting knocked down song that you sing at bowling alleys.
It's not what you expected, huh? You guys thought it was just something to make little moving gorilla toys too.
You wonder if someone just designed that gorilla and thought it's great, but what if it danced to something? And then the guys in the room were just what about this song? What about Enya? What about
I like to think that gorilla was made by a super ultra capitalist guy. He reads Ayn Rand all night and he's like, what's the worst thing I could do to those anarchist tub thumping dudes? I'm gonna find the shittiest sweatshop and have them make my gorilla toy that plays their song.
Maybe it was Margaret Thatcher's nephew or something like that. He's
I've really stuck it to him.
Fucking bastards. All right, well, in this episode, we will continue our Chumba saga. What do you think of that little pun?
Hey, it works for me, man. Chumba saga.
We'll continue our Chumba saga, following our heroes from the mid-'80s until the mid-'90s, during which time the band broke free from the punk rock mold and explored a variety of musical styles, from Polk. That was me trying to say pop and folk, but it ended up being Polk. But we're gonna keep that in there,
all right?
Because I like to think that they did pioneer the genre of Polk. To pop to folk to acid house and seemingly everything in between. I'm doing a great job of script reading today. You can tell we're really prepared for this episode.
There's there's a thunderstorm going on. We both literally just got off work.
Yeah, we're really taking this anarchy thing a little too seriously.
I like it. That's a good spin. Our fuck ups are just our tribute to anarchy.
Yeah, either that or, like you said, maybe capitalism did this to us. All right, but nevertheless, on this episode today, you're going to learn a lot of interesting things. We'll take a lot of detours on the road to tub thumping. You're going to learn about an obscure English land reform movement from the 17th century.
Fuck yeah. That's what I was waiting all day for.
That's all we ever get bombarded with requests. It's
more land reform. Can you guys talk about that more?
I want to learn more about the levelers. We're going to teach you about the time that Chumbawamba were harassed by state police. Imagine that. And we will, toward the end of this episode, reveal some of my personal favorite Chumbawamba tracks. All right. Excited, Cal?
I am.
All right. Let's do this. All right, now when we last left off, Chumbawamba had just emerged from a year-long struggle supporting UK miners in their unsuccessful fight against the British government. But while this endeavor proved ill-fated, it did not extinguish the band's willingness to fight, and the 80s provided plenty of heels willing to get in the ring. The next challenger to face Chumbawamba was a particularly insidious beast that cloaked its selfish depravity behind the guise of goodwill. I'm talking, of course, about Live Aid.
You know, as a modern person trying to get into Bob Dylan retroactively, the voice is a fucking barrier, I gotta say.
Yeah, I even like his voice, but like not when he's trying to sing actual songs that are meant to be sung in a proper way.
You're the guy who does that kind of goofy talking.
Hey! Not the last time we'll mention Dylan in this episode, by the way. But yeah, that was We Are the World. It was kind of an anthem that was tied to the whole Live Aid movement. Do you know anything about Live Aid, Cal? I think we've kind of like touched on it a little bit behind the scenes, but like before we ever did any of that, like what's your like just general historical impression of this?
Honestly, the only thing I know about it is Freddie Mercury playing at it, doing the whole thing, and then like I don't know, man. I guess I associate it with like U2 for some reason.
Oh yeah, U2 is a big part of it.
Yeah, to me it's okay. It's a charity concert. That's the most I ever thought about it.
Yeah.
So in general, you think positive things.
Yes, it was a charity concert, a superstar charity concert that took place in July of 1985, and it was just a massive event that it was one of the most watched televised events in the history of the world, apparently, according to the numbers that have been given. So Chumbawamba were active during this time, obviously, and they had plenty to say about it. In fact, they were so obsessed with Live Aid that they devoted their entire debut album to critiquing the concert and the celebrities involved. And that album is titled, rather provocatively, Pictures of Starving Children Sell Records.
On our show tonight, we've got lots of surprises in store for you at home. In keeping with the fashion for charity, not change, is our contribution. We've called it Slag Aid. For every pop star that we slag off today, £1 million will be given away. Come on down with crocodile tears to irrigate this ground. Make of Ethiopia a fertile paradise where everyone sings Beatles songs and buys shares in EMI. Charity, starvation and rock and roll. Let it be. Hey, Polly.
See, this is the part where we tell you how much Live Aid secretly sucked. I think everyone knew it was coming.
Yeah, and we will talk about how much Live Aid sucked in a little bit. Basically, this is a kind of a diss track against a lot of heavy hitters. You just listen. He went after Paul McCartney. He's going after Freddie Mercury. Later, he goes after David Bowie. Basically, the whole thing of it is like, here's a bunch of rich rock stars that don't know what they're talking about, that are trying to get me to donate to this charity that is in fact a bit of a scam, according to Chumbawamba.
I'm with them even it's gonna sound bad, even when they're doing it for legit charities. I kind of feel this way.
And when you think about how political Chumbawamba is, it makes sense, because what do anarchists want to do? They want to change the system. They want to make it so that nobody starves, nobody has to deal with famine or war or anything like that, because we've toppled the evil regimes and the exploitation that makes that possible. But what charity does is it just kind of puts a Band-Aid on the problem.
Right.
And I think that's like what Chumbawamba, in their own kind of sneering, punky way, are trying to address.
I have also learned, the biggest motivator for a rich person to give a bunch to a charity is tax avoidance.
Oh, yeah, big time.
So, again, it's not even really about fixing the problem, is it?
Yeah, and we will deal more substantively with Live Aid in the future. In fact, here's a bit of a surprise announcement. We're going to do a whole mini-sode about Live Aid. I when I started researching this, because at first I was thinking like, okay, I get what Chumbawamba is saying here, but aren't they being a little bit rude, But the more I dived into it, the more I realized this is just an incredibly fascinating topic. Both the circumstances which they were ostensibly raising money for, and what the concert entailed, and what actually happened to the money that was raised by all these rock stars, which is a story that, to my knowledge, doesn't get told a lot, but is a very fascinating and kind of harrowing tale.
Well, yeah, because if you're going to go out and publicly talk shit about Live Aid, like, you better be ready with some facts.
Yeah.
And I know you are.
Yeah, so watch for that in the next couple of weeks or maybe months.
No, right now.
Right now, okay,
This
fine.
is Chumbawamba 1.5.
Well, in 1983, a famine broke out in Ethiopia. No. So we're gonna dive further into the Live Aid spectacle in that minisode, because when I originally wrote this episode, it was like taking up like half the script, and I realized like this episode was going to be 3 hours long if I included everything I wanted to say about it. But to kind of give you the short version, Chumbawamba's main critique of Live Aid was that A, it did little more than serve the egos of those involved, and B, it failed to actually address the systemic cause of the crisis. See, Chumbawamba understood that things like famine and third world poverty are not just humanitarian problems, they're political problems. And any attempt to throw money around without comprehending that basically is just pissing on a house fire. There's a little verse toward the end of that song we just played that I like. It kind of it slows down, gets acoustic, and someone, I think it's Boff, sings, "I know there must be more than giving just a little bit more when half the world is so helplessly poor, starved of the real solution, charity and tradition, and the cycle of hungry children will keep going round till we burn the House of Commons to the ground."
Yeah, that's anarchy.
Yeah, I like that. Burn the House of Commons to the ground. That is a statement that Nick and Cal can endorse.
Yeah.
But the Pictures of Starving Children album did more than just attack Live Aid. It covers a range of other issues as well, from casual racism to third world labor exploitation to the Sandinista revolution in Nicaragua. But even with these incisive lyrics aside, it's just a great record with a wide array of great sounds, moods, and musical ideas. One moment it's cheeky and sardonic, the next it's raging and polemical. To me, it's a tremendous achievement for a debut album, and probably a great introduction to Chumbawamba for anyone who wants to understand what this band is truly capable of.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's like, spoiler of the ones we're going to talk about today, this one was my favorite.
Yeah.
For the reasons you just said. I think it was like a perfect blend of like humor and anger, and they're just kind of raging at everything that pisses them off, but in a very quirky, unique way.
Yeah, and like we got a little bit of that rage in the Revolution single that we played last time, but they're starting to learn how to balance it out with like kind of these like silly, cheeky pop moments like you just heard in that sample. Like they're playing with humor, they're playing with song structure, and playing with a lot of different styles, and just doing whatever the hell they want, but like always keeping it like laser focused on the seriousness of their message.
Yeah, and it's like we were talking about at the end of the first one. You can tell that they want to make sure people hear this.
Yeah.
So they're actually bothering with production and pop style songwriting.
Yeah. I think their whole thing was like, what's the point of preaching our message to like 40 pogoing kids in a basement when like we want to reach everybody, so we should at least try to make music that's danceable and sounds good. Yeah, so I think I kind of vacillate a little bit, but that is either my favorite or my second favorite record by Chumbawamba. I always hate when like the first album is the best or one of the best, but like in this case, like not to the other albums' discredit, but it's pretty damn good.
Yeah, no, that happens a lot.
So in 1987, Chumbawamba followed up Pictures of Starving Children with another concept album, this time attacking the institution of liberal democracy itself. Released on the same day as Britain's general election, The LP was titled Never Mind the Ballots, Here's the Rest of Your Lives. And while not quite as sweeping or powerful as their first record, this is still a really great album whose critique of electoral politics is just as relevant today as it was back then. Let's take a listen.
Always tell the voter what the voter wants to hear. Welcome to Never Mind the Ballots. The phone lines are now open. If you'd like to put a question to the candidates, the number to ring is 0532 779 463. You want jobs? I got jobs. Hospitals, top of my list. Tax cuts and pamphlet shoes. For every small businessman. Just give me your vote. Just give me your vote.
How about that bass line, though? That little honky tonk.
That's kind of
the
the bass is like kind of both what I love and is the most distracting on these first two.
Yeah.
You know, because it's all that kind of polka-y boom, boom, boom on most of the tracks. But it's all good bass playing.
I think it's really fun.
Yeah, so I don't know.
I think it helps it stand out. Like they got a pretty solid rhythm section by this point. Like, and then they've got like 6 other people in the band who are doing fuck all.
It's like Slipknot.
Yeah. I mean, like you watch them live, they really are entertaining. Like they dress in costumes, like they do like synchronized moves on stage. Like they really put a lot of thought into their live show. So they're a complete band by this point, you know, and the music is just like, it's just like very fun. And boy, Cal, I tell you, like in this modern age, in 2024, listening to an album that talks about how elections are kind of a sham and voters don't really have a real choice in the system, it's going to resonate particularly hard.
It hits hard right now. Why am I choosing between 2 men with dementia?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's like 350 million people. You can theoretically choose anyone over 35, and this is who the system chooses as who's going to lead a nuclear armed superpower forward. Like maybe, just maybe, there might be a better system than this. I don't know. Yeah, that's a fun song. It's a fun album. I should note that the second half of the Nevermind the Ballots album isn't available on streaming platforms for some reason. I don't know what that is, but like if you listen on streaming platforms, you're gonna hear half of a pretty good album.
Yeah, I maybe. Hang on, is this the whole album?
No, there's another track that's like a
All
suite.
Right.
That's like,
I was gonna say I thought it
13 minutes longer.
You know, with punk, you never know.
Yeah,
I was like, because it's 22 minutes.
That's why
the
that's
first
why,
half.
That's why it fooled me for the longest time until I like researched it a little bit more. I realized like, oh no, there's a whole second half I haven't been listened to.
Well, me neither. Apparently, was it worth it?
But you know, it's a good album. So there are a lot of great lyrics on this album. Like I said, you know, attacking democracy. It's a sacred cow. It's going to upset a lot of people, but I think they're being proved more right every minute when we look at the choices that we're being given. But to me, the track that really steals the show on this album is the final song on the first side. It's called The Candidates Find Common Ground. Now here, Chumbawamba satirically outlined the platforms of the mainstream left and right, in the process making it clear that they're really not all that different at all. Now, Cal, I could just play the clip for you guys, but I thought we should have some fun. I know you hate fun.
I tried fun once. I hated it.
What we're gonna do is Cal and I are gonna act out the parts of this song ourselves. So in this song, Alice and Danbert play different political candidates, and we're gonna just kind of act out those parts.
You guys get to hear my horrible British accent.
You can do whatever accent you want. Like I didn't even know what accent I'm going to choose. It's just going to be whatever comes out of my mouth. You could be British, you could be Australian, you could be Russian, you could be some like motherfucker from Mars or Topeka.
I'm sticking with British because I don't want to be unintentionally insensitive.
Okay, fine. Let's offend people who look like us.
Yes.
That's a good general rule. All right, go.
Full employment, slave labor, and schemes.
An unemployed workforce, the capitalist dream.
But let's keep Britain working.
Either way, we must keep Britain working.
Conventional weapons to kill people nicely.
Nuclear weapons to keep the peace.
But weapons definitely.
Either way, we must defend ourselves.
Nationalization with one big boss.
No privatization with lots of little bosses. But someone in control, of course. Either way, there must be someone giving orders.
It's cute.
That was, yeah. It's a good concept. And, like this is anarchist theory 101. Both sides are controlled by one big puppet master. That sort of thing.
No, and like we were just saying, that's how you end up with two octogenarian candidates. There is some truth to this shit.
Yeah.
It's really easy to say like the sides are not the same. And when you look at social issues, yeah, totally. Worlds couldn't be further apart.
Yeah, elections do have consequences. I'm not advocating like not voting, and like we've made it pretty clear where we stand and who we're probably going to vote for in the next election. But I think what they're really saying is think bigger.
Yeah, you got to smash this whole thing down.
Yeah.
Fuck both these guys.
Like if you pull that lever for one side or the other and then go back to your daily life and think, okay, everything's all
gonna
right
change
now.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, like no, like you just like Jon Stewart on the Daily Show recently said, like the good news is you don't have to worry about this election. The bad news is you have to worry about every single day for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I actually saw that clip.
That's a really good way of putting it. And Chumbawamba's a very fun way to hear someone make that point, you know. So another significant thing about Nevermind the Ballots is that it's really the last Chumbawamba disc that can be properly considered a punk album. Now from here on out, the band would move away from fast tempos and distorted guitars in favor of, well, basically whatever the heck they wanted to do. And first on their list of stylistic deviations was, you guessed it, an a cappella folk album.
You noble diggers all, stand up now, stand up now. You noble diggers all, stand up now. The wasteland to maintain, seen cavaliers by name. Your digging does maintain, and persons all defame. Stand up now, stand up now. Your houses they pull down, stand up now, stand up now. Your houses they pull down, stand up now. Your houses they pull down to fright your men in town. But the gentry must come down, and the poor shall wear the crown. Stand up now, diggers all.
All right, I was officially not expecting that.
Neither were, like, can you imagine being like just some like snot-nosed mohawked punk kid, going to a record store? You probably shoplifted it and ran off into the
I'll go with that new Chumbawamba.
And then you're like, all right, fucking, I thought their last album, like they had that fucking country shit in like that, but this one, they're going to go back to their hardcore roots. I don't know why I gave that guy an American accent, but just imagine you're that guy, and you hear fucking that. Like, that's what they intended. They loved fucking with their own audience.
That's like if Slayer did an acoustic album.
Oh,
just
would they do it slow, or would they just be thrashing on an acoustic guitar?
That is a good question.
Because like the Melvins did that for real. They just thrashed on a guitar, and it sounded like, it's still good, but it just sounded the way
right. Yeah,
it would.
Yeah.
This would be like if Slayer did Tom Araya's yelling but over kazoos. That would be fun. That's a free that one's on me, Slayer. Like I know that you guys are probably gonna do another reunion tour in 3 years. So
God.
and you need some fresh material.
And that's what I'm rebelling against. I'm boycotting them.
That's a bigger issue than poverty or war is fake band reunion farewell tours that cost $300.
It should be right in law that as soon as you say like we're retiring, we're done, you have to be done.
Yeah, if you are retiring as a band, we are gonna take you and your instruments and seal you cryogenically in a vault where you can be like appreciated in a museum forever, but you can't come back to make shitty
You're allowed
music.
to come back, but only if you play all kazoo covers of your own songs.
All right, so that album, Chumbawamba's third album, released in 1988, it was titled English Rebel Songs 1381 to 1914, and it is exactly that. All the songs on this album are various traditional English protest songs that date from the Middle Ages to the early 20th century. For example, that last one that you just heard was called the Diggers Song, and it was written in the 17th century about a group of English dissidents called the Diggers, which it's an awkward name. Let's just get that out there. It's not the Diggers' fault.
No, I had a neighbor who named their family dog Digger. And when they were yelling for him through the neighborhood, it was like, you guys couldn't have picked anything else.
So they yell that, and like, you know, some like gun-toting patriot, you know, a couple houses down, it's like, where? Let me grab my AK. Yeah. So the whole thing about Chumbawamba is like every song requires like a big explanation as to what it's about, and I've had to do so much just like hours and hours of research on various political topics just because Chumbawamba explored that territory once in a song that nobody's heard.
17th century English diggers.
That's literally what I did, Cal. But honestly, it turns out these guys are actually kind of cool. So, background. Okay, the Diggers. They emerged in the middle of the 17th century, and I'm not an expert on English history at all, but in the middle of the 17th century, you had what was called the Glorious Revolution, where they overthrew and executed the king. And in this kind of political vacuum that emerged, there were a lot of radical movements that kind of sprung up, and it really was just kind of shocking how much political radicalism and chaos, like very agrarian movements, kind of emerged in this period following centuries of just boring medieval shit. So the Diggers were one of the groups that kind of emerged during this period. They were also called the True Levelers, and they represented poor farmers who lived on the estates of wealthy landowners. Now, at the time, the land-owning gentry class in England would practice what was called enclosure, which was this thing where different sections of farmland were closed off, and the tilling was kind of rotated on one plot or another for a period of years. And part of the enclosed space was called the commons. This was just a big area of the estate that was sectioned off. No one could farm on it. It belonged to the gentry and the landlord. Well, in theory, this was supposed to increase the efficiency of agriculture, but in practice, a lot of landlords held it for speculation.
Right.
At this time, you're also dealing with a lot of poverty on the part of England's farmers. So the Diggers were this movement that basically just advocated setting up shop on the commons and farming it anyway, even though that was illegal. They had a couple of Bible verses that, you know, they thought justified what they did. But basically what they're doing is squatting.
Right, yeah.
And a kind of agrarian socialism, because they didn't believe that any private property, or they believed in private property, but not private land ownership. They thought, you know, this land belongs to us. It's like man's natural godly state to farm the land, and fuck you,
right,
landowners. Like you're not going to keep us down. That sort of thing.
Look out the window. We've got diggers in the commons. It's like getting blight on your crops, except it's humans coming here.
Yeah. Yeah, so like Chumbawamba are just the 20th century equivalent of the Diggers. And,
Okay.
and again, like this movement didn't last very long. It like didn't have a huge long-term impact. Like
Well, and how could it? You're literally like voluntarily, like you said, squatting. So like your belongings are carrots.
yeah,
And they're meager carrots because you're farming someone else's land.
exactly. Well, and predictably, these guys just got chased off and arrested
Yeah.
everywhere they went because that's how England was at the time and today, I guess. But yeah, they were the punk rockers of their day in a sense. So I just love the fact that their memories being kept alive on an obscure punk album 300 plus years later. But no, like the whole album, like it's honestly very beautiful. Like I really liked that track. It's not the kind of thing I'd listen to every day,
Yeah, totally.
but like everyone should listen to it once.
I have a bunch of records like that are kind of like just I like them because they're unique.
Like remember that time that Andrew WK did an album of solo piano improvisations?
I do remember that.
It's like I think about that record every once in a while. It's not a go-to for me, but I'm just glad that he did it.
Yeah.
Like albums like this should exist even if they're not going to be profitable or if you're not going to want to listen to it a lot. Like,
No, yeah. It's just a little potpourri in your collection.
exactly. So English Rebel Songs was a bold experiment that once again demonstrates Chumbawamba's willingness to challenge their own audience. But I think the real triumph of this record is that for the first time, Chumbawamba learned how to harmonize with each other. And they realized that they could be pretty good at it. And from here on out, harmonies would become an invaluable weapon in the Chumbawamba arsenal. They would deploy it time and again in their slow march toward pop stardom. Well, Cal, if that a cappella folk album threw you off guard, you're gonna love this next album and this next phase of this band's career.
It's gonna be like sitar music or something like.
No, but I mean, I'm sure they thought of it. So they're gonna go dance. They're gonna make some dance music. And folks, if you know nothing about Cal Dennison, you should know that he loves to boogie and to get on his feet and to bust his moves in front of strangers, like entire large groups of people. If he's ever standing in front of a bar full of gritty white Wisconsin men, he'll just start dancing immediately. There's nothing he loves more than that.
My love of dance is why I got into metal.
Yes, because he has to overcompensate for how much he really just wants to listen to Daft Punk all day.
Say that there's exactly 3 dance albums I like, and Daft Punk might be one of them.
Yeah. You've been getting into it. But to really kind of properly understand why Chumbawamba made this particular move, we're going to have to take another little detour and examine the British musical landscape at the time. You see, by the mid-'80s, much of anarcho-punk and post-punk had run its course, and the kids who grew up with it were slowly beginning to turn out and join the so-called real world. But in its place, a new counterculture was emerging, one centered not around mohawks, spit, and cheap beer, but on day-glow dungarees, flashing lasers, and ecstasy. The drug, not the feeling of bliss. I mean that too, but mostly from the drug. All right, welcome to the world of acid house. Close your eyes. You can see the trail of the glow stick.
Oh man, I don't mind some acid house type stuff, but this early stuff from when it's in its infancy, it still sounds like just a wasted guy dicking with his keyboard. He gets the loop going, and he just starts hitting sound effects. Whoop whoop. What if I put this here?
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds all right. Like I don't know. I like where the genre went as people develop their talent, but I do struggle with the early stuff.
It is fun music that's easy for an old man to kind of hate on. It's really easy to dismiss as not
Where's
music.
the instruments?
Yeah, and maybe the whole reason why these kids loved it so much is because like they're just trolling.
Yeah, their
boomer
fucking dad
parents.
hates it.
Yeah, which is tale as old as time. But yeah, beginning around 1987, the British underground scene became dominated by what's now known as rave culture. House music, which originated in Chicago during the early to mid 80s, made its way across the Atlantic to London's club scene, where it quickly spread across the country. In addition to shows at established clubs, all-night parties were thrown illegally at various warehouses, fields, and disused buildings across the UK. This fact, combined with the scene's association with drugs, especially ecstasy of course, led to a predictable moral panic hyped up by Britain's ever-hysterical tabloid apparatus. This, of course, only made rave culture seem that much cooler.
Fuck yeah.
And this is where, even if you don't like that music, and I understand if you don't, I think it's kind of cool. I wouldn't listen to it regularly, but I understand the appeal of it for sure. But I think you do have to respect the kind of scene that was built around it and what these people did with it, because people did kind of freak out about this at the time, and these parties were just thrown in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Right.
You had to call a guy to get directions to where the next show was going to be. And the police sometimes would intercept that, and just try to arrest everybody and shut the whole thing down. And it's the whole thing is very punk rock.
Yeah, no, for real.
But the other thing to take home is that this really was the thing in 1988. The summer of 88 was known in Britain as the second summer of love. So a whole new generation has passed, and this is what the kids are into nowadays. And it was just a very positive space. No one really gets into arguments on E.
No, yeah, that makes no sense.
So you really do just love everyone, and it's just a beautiful, awesome experience. And it can make fuddy-duddies like me and Cal dance under the right circumstances. And even in England, they have like hooliganism and all these fans from rival teams, whereas normally they'd be out in the street swizzling beer and beating the shit out of each other. Here they're in these warehouses fucking dancing together. It united people of different street factions.
That's the power of ecstasy and house music.
Yeah.
It'll help you get over your football rivalry.
Yeah, get fucking Putin and Zelensky in a room, give them some pacifiers and Molly, and have them fucking dance all night. We'll solve this shit. So in the late 80s, the members of Chumbawamba were taken in by rave culture and fascinated by what it represented. I think they realized that this was the new form of social rebellion, a scene with all the youthful charisma and do-it-yourself ideology of punk rock. And, as we indicated earlier, if Chumbawamba were all about fighting for the people, and this is what people were into, why not give it a go?
Like we were saying, it fits what he said at the end of the first episode of why stick to this crumbling scene? Mm-hmm. Are you standing up for punk rock or are you standing up for anarchy?
Yeah.
It's two different things.
Yeah, and they definitely, for them it was anarchy.
Yep.
For sure.
They'll do this in whatever genre they need to. They'll record a Gregorian chant if they had to.
It sounds like they almost kind of did. Yeah. So the result of this shift in perspective was Chumbawamba's 1990 studio album, Slap. Yeah.
Slap.
It's I gotta admit, Cal, like when I first heard this album, it was really like, oh my god, like what the fuck is this shit? This is the one that grew on me the most. Like, well, I really like that.
Yeah, for a dance album, that was good. I do think it's like a literal slap in the face if you are like a punk rock diehard. Like this goes beyond any, I want to say sellout moment, but obviously that's not what it is. They don't sell out. It's more like I don't know, imagine how like Metallica fans felt after the Black Album, like times 100.
I'm sure there were a lot of people that were just baffled by it. It's like you said, it's not even selling out. It's just like
it's a complete genre shift.
Yeah, it's like they just seem to like just revel in how much this is gonna fuck with their own audience, and yet it worked. There's a video that's on YouTube of them from around this era. This is the first like proper U.S. tour that they did. They played the Gilman Street Club in the Bay Area, which is the kind of famous like Oakland punk rock club that Green Day came out of, like this very big punk institution. They play this material at that show and they fucking kill it.
Oh yeah. No, I bet. Like I was actually thinking that when we were hearing some of it and the horns kick in and stuff, you're like, all right, live, this will be fun.
Yeah. Needless to say, like a lot of people were skeptical, including the band's own label, by the way. At the time they were on Southern Records, which was run by John Loder, the guy who engineered most of Crass's records. he was really not into this whole concept. They somehow convinced him to release it. So like,
I would have loved to be there for that conversation.
So are you sure about this?
This is a guy used to producing music like purposely shitty, and now he's got to make that.
Dude, imagine if like Crass recorded that just with their mixing style. you gotta dance to that. That'd be fun. Maybe Crash should have stuck it around a little bit longer.
Yeah. They
could have taken some and maybe chill the fuck out a little bit. But again, there are lyrics to that song. I don't know if they ended up in the clip that I'm going to eventually edit. But it does have a story behind it. This song is about an incident that involved a female Northern Irish member of Parliament named Bernadette Devlin. Now, Devlin was a socialist and a believer in Irish reunification. In 1972, she personally witnessed the Bloody Sunday massacre, where British soldiers shot 26 unarmed civilians during a protest march in Derry, Northern Ireland. The following day, a Conservative cabinet member named Reginald Malding, which, again, most English name of all time. They probably made him a minister on that name alone. Reginald Malding spoke to the House of Commons and actually defended the troops who committed the massacre, claiming that they fired in self-defense. Shocking. We never see this.
Some things never change.
But this Devlin member of Parliament had a really awesome response. She got up from her seat, walked over to Mr. Malding and slapped him across the face. Hence the title, Slap.
I would love to see something that badass out of one of our congressmen just once.
Didn't that happen recently? Didn't like Jim Jordan get like punched in the kidney or something? That like
really? Oh, I feel like I would have seen that on Reddit or something.
It's something like that happened recently where it was like a conservative on conservative crime. It was like you're not Trumpy enough kind of a thing.
Well, all right, cool.
It was this happened when they were trying to pick the next speaker.
Then I don't even have to worry about the high road. I can just say that was awesome. I'm glad that happened.
Yeah, we may not agree with his reasoning, but like
fuck Jim Jordan. I hope he gets punched in his other kidney.
I think they should all like just start mauling each other. They should just build a big fucking octagon and have them all go at it. See how maybe like 40 of them survive. That's all we need. Why do we need 500 fucking members of Congress? Especially when they're going to be this shitty.
Yeah, and like a third of them are going to break their hip in the first 30 seconds in the ring.
You know? Like AOC's young. She seems like she's been a bartender.
She could claw some eyes.
She could hold her own in a fight. I think she comes out, okay. So
Can you imagine how funny it would be to see Bernie Sanders, though, stand up and just like, walk up to fucking McConnell and slap the shit out of him?
I'm gonna gouge your fucking eyes out. Fucking Chuck Schumer. Yeah, let's just do this. Celebrity Deathmatch, congressional style. And actually, every song on the Slap album has a similar historical tale behind it. For instance, there's a song about Tiananmen Square, which you all know about unless you grew up in the country where it happened. There's also a song about the Hungarian Revolt of 1956, where a bunch of workers got pissed off about their shitty working conditions and protested in the Capitol and brought down a statue of Stalin. So just like a lot of like the whole point is we're going to sing about positive stories about like revolutionary struggle that actually worked out and like achieved something.
These are all a whole bunch of slaps.
Yeah.
Yep,
yeah.
I get it. I like it. It's a good theme.
Yeah, good slaps. So yeah, in sum, slaps. Now here I want to take a little break from the music to just kind of tell another story that reminds everyone of just how active Chumbawamba's kind of extracurricular activities were. So obviously throughout the 80s and 90s, the band, like, they may have changed their sound, but they did not change their politics. Like, they were as active in protests and making leaflets in their basement and giving, whatever meager money they had to charity and community organizations. Like, they were still doing that shit nonstop. And they were so active that occasionally they drew the attention of the local authorities. In one extreme case, this led to their squat house being repeatedly raided by police who believed that Chumbawamba were behind, get this, a series of terrorist bombings.
I'm actually not that surprised. I mean, we had a whole episode about how like ICP got mistaken for a gang.
Yeah.
And I could see a bunch of really out of touch British old conservative police that don't understand any of this. They see this weird squat house that they know has a printing press in the basement and they're pushing literature around. I don't know. Like it's ridiculous to you and me because we understand these types, but I can kind of get it.
It is ridiculous when you understand these types. And I think I agree that on paper, given how police tend to operate and how kind of clueless probably this whole generation of policemen were. And, it doesn't help that they sang about burning the House of Commons to the ground.
Yeah.
But where it gets funny to me is like when you actually listen to any interview with any of the members of Chumbawamba, like it's so obvious right away that these are like just the nicest, like most normal guys in the world. Like all of them have just like grandson vibes about them. Like they're these really cool, chill, fun people. But what happened, that kind of drew the attention of the police was they were attending this protest against the bank Barclays for the bank's support of South Africa's apartheid regime. Barclays had investments in South Africa, and at the time, people who were against apartheid were trying to discourage businesses from having any business dealings in that country at all. And it totally didn't work. And so no one should ever try boycotting and divestment and sanctions again. But anyway, I digress. What happened was they went to the protest. The protest got like filmed by police so that they could identify all these radicals that are involved in it. And later on, somebody who is not a member of Chumbawamba left a crude homemade bomb outside of a Barclays office in downtown Leeds.
It's always someone who's got to take it too far.
Yeah, so that's bad. Don't bomb anyone. If you do, make sure that the property's insured and that nobody actually dies. But yeah, no, that's taking it too far. So the Leeds police, they start looking at their old footage and they somehow track down the members of Chumbawamba. Like, oh, these are the guys that weren't they just singing a folks about them? Like, I think I saw them when we busted off that last rave. So they raid Chumbawamba's house and they realized that the band had a printing press in the basement And this was the evidence that they
Yep.
used to say that, okay, obviously these guys are
At
terrorists.
the very least, they're fucking weirdos.
Yeah. I mean, they are fucking weirdos. They'll
Yep.
be the first to cop to that. But yeah, they were held in prison cells for 23 hours. They were fingerprinted, strip searched, fingers up the ass, the whole 9 yards.
That's the cop's favorite part.
Yeah, they live for that. That's why they sign up.
Yep.
They just, I want to finger somebody, but not have it be weird. But of course, thankfully, Chumbawamba were released because these guys aren't terrorists. And they've never killed anybody, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
According to Boff's book, quote, "We were raided 3 times at Southview House by police, stopped and searched while driving over a dozen times, held and questioned at border controls about 10 times, and strip searched upwards of 8 or 9 times."
I love how after like time 4, let's say, you're just doing it to humiliate them. I mean, come
for sure.
on.
Yeah, and like these are, they talk about situations where like they're doing tours of Europe, they get stopped by border patrol, someone discovers like an anarchist magazine that they had, and then they just get held and they miss dates because of it. It's just like it's a lot of work being in this outfit. And like the weird thing is that they're not even doing drugs.
Right.
Like none of these guys like did drugs really. And that's probably the thing that saved them from actually disintegrating as a band.
I actually am a firm believer. Like, if you're going to live this type of lifestyle and try and take down the man, yeah, you need to not be doing drugs.
Yeah.
Because that's the first thing they're going to use against you.
Oh, for sure. Like, I mean, that's probably why the guys in Crass were so keen to clean up their act. Because there's going to be a target on your back, and people are just being the way they are. They're going to just find any excuse to attack you or dismiss you. But if you look clean and you like can speak well,
and when you're booked for the first time, you don't give them an inch.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, as soon as you have any illegal drug on you or in your system, they're just going to use that instead of your beliefs to take you down.
And nothing annoys the cops more than like having to release someone they suspect of a crime, like knowing that like they lost in that moment, even though they got to finger somebody. It was all for naught. And I also just kind of want to point out that it's worth remembering that even though today we think of the anti-apartheid movement as like, obviously Nelson Mandela is a hero, like obviously that was a terrible thing that the world was right to condemn. Like back in the mid to late 80s, the only people making that point were left-wing radicals, were like socialists and people that like ordinary people's like, why are they blocking this? Why are they protesting? Why are they interrupting my traffic commute? I don't care about South Africa. It always amazes me how the Overton window shifts throughout history, and or like what's radical today is completely common sense and ordinary tomorrow. So think about that as you discuss. I don't know if there are any issues or controversies or world events today that have any like comparable significance, but maybe you might want to think about how people are protesting against that. And anyway, back to what you all came here for, Chumbawamba's increasingly convoluted and random discography. Now, having successfully incorporated dance rhythms into their anarcho-punk sound, the band decided that the next logical step was to incorporate sampling. Very liberal sampling. It's for their 5th studio album, which was originally titled Jesus H. Christ.
That is a phenomenal album name, by the way.
You think so?
Jesus H. Christ, yeah.
I think it's kind of, I don't know, like,
I just feel like it's gonna annoy people. You're gonna push people's buttons.
I almost feel like it's too like edge lordy, It's like Jesus H. Cross. I don't know. They ended up changing the album title, but yeah. So they wanted to call it Jesus H. Christ, and what they did for this record was basically just mashing together this kaleidoscopic mix of pop classics from like heavy hitters like the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, ABBA, Marvin Gaye, I think the Rolling Stones, like a whole bunch of different music.
All the biggest stuff at the time.
Ends up in these kind of mashup-y songs. Now, according to Boff, Chumbawamba weren't sampling per se, but rather, quote, inserting our own versions of pop classics into Chumbawamba songs. We were doing covers, giving them a new context, twisting them out of all recognition in order to fit our nasty and cynical game plan. I don't know, what do you, before you hear any of the actual music, just what do you think of this approach on paper?
They're not actually covering it, right? They're taking a recorded sample at song. Yeah, I mean, knowing everything we know about music law, that's not gonna work. You'd have to distort it so thoroughly that what's even the point? They're not gonna know that's what you took it from. That's the only way you can get away with it.
Yeah, I mean, they did like, it doesn't feel like a straight cover to me. They did like fuck around with the samples that they took, but they just did a lot of it.
Yeah,
and I think you guys are gonna kind of hear that in this next song, which kind of contains a few recognizable samples of songs you might know. So this is a tune called All Right Now. Yeah.
Okay, they did actually mash it up more than I was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, I wonder if like nowadays you could get away with this.
I think if you put it out as a mixtape and like didn't try to charge for it, you maybe could. But like honestly, like this is 1992 that they try to put out this album, and this is a couple of years I think after the Biz Markie lawsuit, which introduces the very concept of having to pay for samples. Whereas before you had albums like Paul's Boutique by the Beastie Boys, which did this level of sampling, but because they were on a major label, and it was before the full effect of that lawsuit hit, they were able to get away with it. And Chumbawamba are just doing the same thing after
a little late
after the Biz Markie lawsuit. And apparently they just not all of them realized that this was not going to work out, because Boff in his book mentions how Alice Nutter kept pointing out that they weren't going to be able to release it because they weren't going to be able to get the samples cleared, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I don't know, they must just really be that idealistic with their beliefs or something.
These artists, they all want to share. They love.
They're not in it
music.
for money.
They don't mind that we called them scum for playing at Live 8 a couple of years ago. They probably forgot. In Chumbawamba's defense, the album isn't bad, and like I said, what they're doing just isn't really that different from what the Beastie Boys actually got away with, and actually what Kid Rock around this same time did on the Polyfuse method, and he did get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
And you could even argue, if you wanted to, that this is kind of prefiguring the genre of plunderphonics. You ever heard of the Avalanches or DJ Shadow, shit like that. That whole scene was gonna really take off about 10 years after this album comes out.
And are they getting their samples cleared? How are they getting away with it?
Some of them do, some of them just don't.
If it's distorted enough and obscure enough, just don't even bother.
I think a lot of it is just playing that game of like you clear what you need to clear.
Yeah.
Like just like, because some artists are more litigious than others. Like the Beatles and the companies that have owned their music over the years jealously guard any samples at all. Led Zeppelin, same things. You just got to like know who's going to sue
Right,
you
if
and
it's
who
some
isn't.
obscure 60s ass doo-wop group, half of them are dead. You might be okay.
Yeah, like it really just depends who owns the property and are they paying attention.
Yep.
But nevertheless, predictably, Chumbawamba failed to get clearances for most of the samples on Jesus H. Christ, and thus weren't able to release the album as such. The whole reason you were able to hear that clip that we just played is because somebody was kind enough to upload the whole thing to YouTube.
The miracle of the internet.
Yeah. But Chumbawamba, weren't going to give up on the project entirely, and they ended up reworking the music into an album called Shh, which, okay, I'll admit I hate that even more than Jesus H. Christ, because like you're just making me say a really shh, like it just like
That's
just,
an awkward album name.
Yeah, it's an awkward name. It's a hard thing to hear. Like I probably made most of our listeners recoil like twice just having to say that. But they call it that because they centered the lyrics around the issue of censorship. Now, I did want to play one track from Shh.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal.
I'm sorry. This one is called There's Nothing New. And it isn't a very dancey or sampley. It actually kind of goes back to like their kind of more folky side. But I want to like kind of bring it up because of the lyrics that are sung in this song that I think kind of try to defend what they're doing by saying that like, oh, well, isn't the whole tradition of rock and roll a theft in some form or another? So let's take a listen and analyze these lyrics and see what Chumbawamba have to say.
Makes sense to me. Our whole podcast is just a indie version of No Dogs in Space.
There's nothing new. Like,
yeah,
there's some other podcast where two dicks talk about bad music that sounds just like this. They're probably in Madison right now making the same jokes. This is that whole like Rick and Morty shit of like infinite timelines and nothing actually matters.
Yeah, and I'll squeeze in my second Gregorian chant mention of the day.
Yeah,
you can go all the way back to that and argue like the notes and scales we've conceived of. Everyone's just ripping each other off on that.
Yeah, so like the idea that like Led Zeppelin could put a patent on, some song that like a black bluesman sang on his porch in 1926 and continue to make millions of dollars off of it. Like it's just kind of silly.
And where does it stop too? Metallica, I think, this was a joke. I don't think they're trying to do this, but they filed like a fake trademark on the open E string. That like that's our sound.
Yeah.
And and I think it was to point out the absurdity of this at some point of like, what are you legally protecting?
Yeah. I mean, this is like going to be even more of an issue in like the more advanced that AI gets.
Yeah.
And the more it's going to be impossible to distinguish like genuinely human created art from amalgamations.
We're already getting there, man. Like I watched Vegeta sings The Can't Stop Me Now or something, and
it was
incredibly
control.
done. It was so good. I was like, what?
Oh, I think you send me that one.
Yeah.
That one actually, I liked it and I hated the fact that I liked it.
Yeah.
But there's one that is it's Michael Jackson's Beat It, but it's just a door stopper being twanged over and over for every instrument. It's just like I don't have to tell you guys, just go on YouTube and like just see all the stupid ass different ways that people are trying to fake AI music. And it's, like I'd respect it more if like you did that, but you like actually tried to do it as a person.
Well, my hope is the AI music will get so out of control, it'll cause a reversion to like people actually caring about emotion in their music.
You're an idealist, Cal. You're Chumbawamba in this episode. Here, like I'm on YouTube right now. I pull it up literally just to make this point. These are being suggested to me. AI cover Hank 182 Eminem. So it's Hank and Boomhauer doing Blink 182 music. The entire Bad album by Michael Jackson, but only when he says E. This is NWA SpongeBob straight out of Compton with SpongeBob, Squidward, and Mr. Krabs. Like, what more do you want?
Dude, you can do any song, any cartoon.
Every System of a Down song, but it's only one word each song. It's like
wait.
Oh yeah, we're it's already fucking old hat. Yeah, so like I think the album is okay. It's definitely a step toward what they were going to do for most of the rest of their career, which was like just kind of like more full-fledged pop than like any one particular genre. I should also mention that so these past two albums were called Slap and Shh, and eventually those albums were re-released onto a single album called Schlap.
All right, I like that.
I actually do like Schlap. I do like Schlap. It's somehow better than a sum of its parts. So I think it's pretty clear by now that with each successive album, Chumbawamba have branched out further and further, even when their musical choices are, shall we say, unorthodox. But in my opinion, it wasn't until their 1994 album Anarchy that things really came together. On this LP, Chumbawamba figured out how to merge all their various musical ideas, Polk. I did it again.
Yeah,
Why
it's back. It's back.
God damn it!
It's canon now.
Okay, someone go on AI on fucking some AI generator and show me what Polk music sounds.
It's gonna be an AI Bob Dylan over Michael Jackson.
Just
beat it.
All right. Chumbawamba figured out how to merge all their various musical ideas, punk, folk, dance, pop, etc., into one cohesive style. Now we'll get to the music in just a bit, but first I have to show Cal this album's original front sleeve. Here we go. All right, Cal, tell the audience what we are looking at.
This actually came up for me when I was doing my research. It's a baby's head coming out of a vagina.
Yep.
It's not a cartoon. It's an actual birth scene.
Yeah, this is a real close-up photo of the miracle of life. An infant's head being extracted from...
his face is all smushed up from being in there.
I really love the look on the baby's face because he's just got this really sour, like...
Yeah, he's got like a put me back in face.
Yeah, he looks very punk rock. And... predictably, this got banned or like you had to buy this album behind the counter, or they put it in a paper bag in a lot of record stores. But it's like they're kind of making a point here that like we all started out like this, unless you're a C-section baby like me. But like this is the supposed miracle of life. If you're a Republican like who's pro-life, you should look at that and think like that's the greatest thing in the world.
God did this.
Yeah.
And me restricting people's abortions rights made this possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should love it.
Yeah, like theoretically, we should adore this, but instead it's deemed offensive.
It has a vagina on the cover.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
You can't let people know what women's lady parts look like. But yeah, I really like this record. I think it might be my actual favorite. And definitely the first two songs are, to me, two of the best Chumbawamba songs of all time. Even better than Tub Thumpin', I'll say that.
All right.
I know, I've committed heresy, but maybe when you hear these songs, you might agree with me. So, this first one, the opening track on Anarchy, is called Give the Anarchist a Cigarette.
Albert, Bobby, for God's sake, burn it down. Nothing ever burns down by itself. Every fire needs a little bit of help. Nothing ever burns down by itself. Every fire needs a little bit of Give the anarchist a cigarette. 'Cause that's as close as he's ever gonna get. Give the anarchist a cigarette. Bobby just hasn't learned it yet. Give the anarchist a cigarette. The times are changing, but he just forgets. Give the anarchist a cigarette. He's gonna choke on his harmonica, Albert. Nothing ever burns down by itself. Every fire needs a little.
I will say, songwriting wise, they've taken a huge step up.
Yeah, for sure.
Like you said, it is the most cohesive sounding.
Yeah, you got like
And
a
like-
little bit of reggae in there.
Yeah, the
Well,
trumpets really fit in where they should. Every member feels like they're doing something for the first time.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And it's just got a really great chorus. Like, I just love the whole vibe of this song. And believe it or not, we obviously have to tell the story behind every Chumbawamba track, but this one is not about some obscure English commune from the 1500s. It is actually about a more well-known figure. This is a diss track against Bob Dylan.
It's one of the most unlikely targets, I feel like. But I'll hear it out. He must have done something that pissed him off.
Well, we know they're not afraid to go after celebrities and pop stars. But the story behind this one, nevertheless, is still a bit strange and very, very esoteric. Have you ever watched the documentary Don't Look Back?
I have not.
Neither have I. But there's a clip and I've actually seen this clip. There's a scene in the Bob Dylan documentary Don't Look Back. It's like it's following him like back in the 60s.
Yeah.
And so he gets in the limo with his manager Albert Brooks, and someone to the side is reading like a newspaper review or something, and noting that some of Dylan's critics are calling him an anarchist. And Dylan kind of laughs this off, and he turns to his manager and jokes, "Give the anarchist a cigarette." And that's what that inspired this song.
It's such a weird thing to get upset about.
I mean, like they're I think their thing is like they're attacking Bob Dylan as like a big rock star. who
Yeah,
makes
the whole
millions of
vibe.
dollars,
Yeah.
like, or he's gonna be on burning it up on his personal jet. I do like the lyric, "The times are changing and he just forgets." So like they're basically just calling him a sellout, essentially. But it's one of those things where like maybe it's a little bit much, but the hook is so good
Yeah,
that
the
I don't
song's
care.
good. And honestly, if you hadn't explained it, I would never have known anyway.
No, I could have guessed for years what this song actually
Yeah, I
means,
think-
not come up with that.
Saying like at that like Bob Dylan, you're a twat in the chorus is a bit much. This is fine.
Exactly. And that song is followed up on the album by what is legitimately, I think, my favorite Chumbawamba song. This one, incidentally, also references a staple of 60s counterculture, and it is called Time Bomb.
Yeah, I like it. Sorry, I'm running out of stuff.
No, like it's pretty, isn't it?
I mean, pretty. I don't know if that's the word.
Maybe that's it's catchy. It makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Like I was listening to it on the way over. I had a shitty day too, and it's just I don't know. It gets me in the mood to kind of like go out and do something very 90s ish. I'm not sure what. Like maybe like roller skate against the backdrop of the Full House, street.
I want to drink out of one of those solo paper cups.
Yeah, you want to find a solo paper cup and then just douse it over your head.
No, they have mastered like. So, everyone talks about that one song, like all the other kids with their pumped up kicks is like the pinnacle example of like dark lyrics over a poppy, happy, cheesy melody.
Yeah.
They had mastered that far ahead.
It's exactly the same thing. Like, cause this song is like, it's supposed to be about like a terrorist bomber who's like kind of lonely and incel-y and gets radicalized. Like
again, more relatable now than it was back then.
Yeah, it's it just ends up being a really awesome song. And notice what both that song and the song before it had in common. The production is unabashedly poppy, and both songs are driven by very strong, catchy hooks. Now, with that in mind, it's starting to become a little bit clearer how we're getting to tub thumping, isn't it?
Yep.
It's like they're like, oh, this is what works. Now, Anarchy, the album, and by the way, I love that, like, they just decided to title this one Anarchy.
Yeah.
Like, in case you hadn't figured it out by that point.
Yep.
Like, maybe it's like they were just so proud of it. They're like,
this has got to be the thesis statement.
Yeah. It's just like, what's the most beautiful thing in the world? A baby being born out of a woman's twat. We have a woodhouse. Anarchy. All right, let's do both of those things in one album. So that album, in spite of its artwork, was for the first time a actual commercial success, at least by Chumbawamba standards. This was the first album of Chumbawamba's to crack the British top 40. It reached as high as number 29, and that song Time Bomb that you just heard reached number 59 on the singles chart. Not bad, for a bunch of eccentric, musically illiterate squat house punks?
Yeah, if you had asked, like, let's say the average British police officer who was sent to investigate them, and you find 8 squatters with a printing press in their basement, like living off avocados and shit, would you ever imagine that they would have a top 40 single someday?
To this day, that cop's probably taking credit for it. I had my fingers up the ass of the guy who wrote Tub Thumpin'.
I was the first one to knock him down.
Except, of course, by this point, Chumbawamba were far beyond that description, and they knew it. Their live shows were now selling out by the thousands, their records appearing on the UK pop charts. Though they had never compromised their radical politics, they had moved past punk in style as well as substance. They were tired of playing the same old circuits to the same old punks, alongside the few remaining remnants of the crass-inspired anarcho-punk scene. By 1994, none of them even lived in the Southview squat house anymore. It was time for a change, and everyone in this band knew it. It was against this backdrop that Chumbawamba faced the biggest decision they'd ever have to make as a band. Could this ambitious, talented, creative band achieve more if new avenues were open to them? Could they maintain their hard-won integrity while working with forces their very ideology opposed? Could Chumbawamba, the mighty anarchists, dare to sell out? And that's where we'll pick back up in Chumbawamba Part 3.
Yeah.
We're getting closer. We're almost there. I promise you guys, we're almost to tub thumping.
We'll tub thump next episode.
It just takes a few more world crises, a few more discoveries of obscure middle-aged squatters.
We haven't exhausted all of our agrarian English groups.
But we will get there, I promise, in the next episode. In the meantime, thank you guys so much for listening. If you want to hear more from us, definitely give us a follow on social media. We post all kinds of shit and we love connecting with our fans. Our biggest thing really is Instagram. We are polishing.podcast on Instagram. We were polishing.turds a long time ago, but then some funny stuff happened. Polishing.podcast on Instagram, polishing_turds on Twitter /X. We're also on YouTube. A lot of people forget that. And it's even cooler now because what I've started to do is we've been doing playlists for our episodes since the very beginning. But now what I'm starting to do is, in addition to linking to the songs that we play in the episode, I'm also putting a bunch of other songs from that band that I like or that are relevant in some way. So I'm trying to give you guys like a broader sample of what Chumbawamba and bands like them bring to the table. So definitely follow our YouTube channel. And of course, obviously, give us a 5-star rating. Some douchebag downvoted us recently. And I know this because I keep track, and our rating went from 4.9 to 4.8.
Motherfucker.
So I know this is definitely the same Thatcherite who made the tub thumping gorilla and, doesn't want us besmirching his life's work. But, come on, guys, we got to outvote that motherfucker. Because in this particular case, democracy is a sham, but not when it comes to us. You have to give us a 5-star rating or you're a fucking sellout.
Exactly.
All right, people. Rock over London, rock on Madison. Menards, save big money.
It's true, we make a better day, just you and me. What's that?